Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, going to be breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings for Wednesday, November the 30th. We do have a big Wednesday slate, 13 games tonight. Gonna go, quickly guys, talk through each one of these 13 games. I'm pretty sure tomorrow on Thursday, we actually only have one NBA game on Thursday, so I won't have a video up for Thursday, for the showdown slate or anything. But I did want to cover this big 13 game slate. Gonna go game by game, give you guys my quick thoughts on the slate, what I do like, taking a first look on Tuesday night. Before we get started with the breakdown though, as always, if you guys enjoy these DFS videos, if they do help you out, please hit that like button down below. I always do appreciate the likes. Hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And if you're new to the channel, check out the sponsor of this video, Prize Picks. So Prize Picks, I'm sure most of you guys have heard of them. They're a player prop based DFS site. Very simple and easy to use. You're just taking more or less on a player's projection. You can take a look at their full board, see all the player props they have posted for Wednesday's games. Obviously making this video on Tuesday night, so there's not a ton of props available right now. But as we get closer to the start of the games on Wednesday, you'll see a ton of different props available in a bunch of different categories. They have points, projections, rebounds, assists, points, rebounds, assists added together, three-pointers made. They have pretty much every stat category that any other sports book has, and they have more stuff like fantasy score and stuff like that. So if you guys want to check out Prize Picks, make sure to sign up with promo code Noah. When you do sign up for Prize Picks with my promo code, you will get your first deposit matched up to $100. But let's go ahead and talk about this 13-game slate for Wednesday. Start off with the first game of the night, the Sixers and the Cavs. So looking at this game, starting off on the Philly side, with James Harden and Tyrese Maxey still out, clearly there's a lot of usage available here, but obviously all these Philly guys have been priced up for when Joel Embiid was out. Harris is 7,700, Melton 7,600, Milton is 6,900. Now that Joel Embiid is back, I would say that these Philly guys are just kind of like secondary plays, especially in a tough matchup against Cleveland. This is not a spot where I really want to be like loading up on Philly. But I could see, one of Harris, Milton, or Melton having a good game here. Shake Milton's the guy that's been playing the best. And, he's been outperforming this $6,900 salary now. 4 straight games. Even last game with Embiid back, Milton played 40 minutes. He took 20 shots. He had 38 Draftkings points. I feel like right now you're kind of overpaying for him. But, God, he just keeps producing at a high rate. He's been averaging like a fantasy point per minute. He's been playing almost 40 minutes a night. I don't think it's like the worst play on the slate. I don't know if it's something that I'm going to do personally. Like, I don't know if I'm going to go to Milton at 6,900, but I wouldn't, hate you for it. I think it's totally fine. Embiid, if you want to pay for him in tournaments, I think he'll be more of a contrarian play on a big slate like this. Tough matchup against Cleveland, but we saw Embiid, first game back from injury. Didn't seem too rusty. 35 minutes, 56 DK points. He's viable if you want to go there. But that's probably it from Philly. Philly in general is not super appealing here. It's a tough spot, and I really don't want to be loading up on many Sixers. And then on the other side with Cleveland, I don't love a ton on Cleveland today. Mitchell and Garland, where they're priced at, neither one of them stand out on a big slate like this. Jared Allen is still out. Kevin Love is still out. So we should see really big minutes for Evan Mobley. Matchup against Joel Embiid is definitely tough. There's obviously some foul trouble risk here as well for Mobley. But the last 2 games without Allen and without Love, Mobley's been productive. 32 minutes, 40, 45 Draftkings points. He's had a double-double in back-to-back games. If I had to play anyone on Cleveland, I think Mobley would be my favorite play, but this is not a game that I'm really that excited about. I don't see a ton I love here. Karis LeVert is really, really cheap. 4,800 feels way too cheap for him, but he just hasn't been that productive lately. He's probably going to have a good game at some point, but again, on a 13-game slate, even at 4,800, I don't think I'm really going to be playing Karis LeVert today, so that does it for this game. Not a super appealing one. Definitely going to be probably a slow pace, kind of lower scoring game. Let's move on to the next one, Atlanta and Orlando. So, looking at Orlando, they're going to be kind of shorthanded here. No Wendell Carter Jr., no Jalen Suggs, and Mo Bamba is questionable. Now, they are getting some guys back. Cole Anthony is back, and Markelle Fultz is expected to make his season debut. So, they're not going to be like super shorthanded, but definitely with the bigs, they could be because obviously Wendell Carter Jr. is out and Mo Bamba is questionable. So, if Mo Bamba were to sit and, with Wendell Carter out, we actually did see them start Bol at center last game. I'm guessing they would do that again. And I think Bol played pretty big minutes last game. Yeah, he played 39 minutes. So if Mo Bamba gets ruled out, I think the biggest beneficiary is probably going to be Bol. Now, I don't love this matchup against Capella, but I think Bol is going to play huge minutes here. I'd assume they would start him at center again. If I had to play anyone on Orlando today, I think he would be my favorite option overall, assuming Mo Bamba's out. but I'm not like running to roster any of these Orlando guys. I think Paolo Banchero looks priced about right, especially with Cole Anthony coming back, with Markelle Fultz making his season debut. That kind of takes me off of guys like Wagner and to a lesser extent Banchero. And then on the other side with Atlanta, I mean, Trae Young and DeJounte Murray both have plenty of upside and can put up huge games any night. I will say that Orlando, they've been weaker against guards this season than they have against like big men. I think it's definitely kind of a tough spot for John Collins and Clint Capella. I think it's a better spot for Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. So one of the Atlanta guards I'm fine with. This is not a slate where I wouldn't be playing both in the same lineup. But if you want to go to one of the two, I don't hate it. I've been chasing DeJounte Murray game, like the big DeJounte Murray game for a while now, and he's been really disappointing lately. The minutes have still been strong. It's just that his point per minute production has really gone down. I feel like at some game he's going to bounce back and have like 55 DK points. Obviously, he had that huge game against Houston. Like he's a super talented player. He's a guy that offers a lot of upside. His production's been down lately, but I feel like a big game's coming at some point. I don't hate going to him in GPPs. Between him or Trae, depending on the ownership, I think they'll both be fairly low owned. I might just go with DeJounte in tournaments just because I think a big game is coming for him, and the price tag at 8,800 does feel a little bit too cheap for him. But again, the other Atlanta guys like Capella and Collins, I'm not really in love with today. I think that's it for this game. There's not a ton to love here in general, but definitely on the Orlando side, if Wendell Carter Jr. With Wendell Carter Jr. out, and if Mo Bamba were to sit, I think that would benefit a guy like Bol. Thought that Mo Wagner might play more, but last game, even with both those guys out, Mo Wagner didn't really play much at all. He only played 11 minutes, so don't know if he's really going to be someone worth targeting, even if Bamba sits. Let's move on to the next game, though. Talk about the Heat and the Celtics. So this should be a fun game to watch, but this is one of those games that's not that appealing for DFS purposes. But that could definitely change, especially on the Boston side, if a guy like Jaylen Brown were to get ruled out. Jaylen Brown did sit last game. We saw Jason Tatum do really well, even in a blowout. He played 30 minutes, had 51 DK points. Marcus Smart was amazing last game with Jaylen Brown out, 31 minutes, 54 DK points. Derek White got the start. He was relatively productive in limited minutes, 29 DK points in 25 minutes. I think those are the three guys I'd be considering on Boston today if Brown is out. If Brown plays, I don't really like much on Boston, just because I think in this matchup against Miami, where all these guys are priced at, there's really nothing that I'm loving on the Celtics today. But that will definitely change, if Jaylen Brown does sit again. I think he's probably going to play, though. And then on the other side with Miami, so still no Jimmy Butler for Miami. A lot of guys questionable here. I think Tyler Hero is questionable. Caleb Martin, I believe, is questionable as well. I think Max Strus is questionable, too. He's probable, so he's expected to play. But, Hero questionable, Martin questionable. We'll have to wait and see who winds up playing here. I mean, clearly, right now, without Jimmy Butler, we can expect a big role for Bam Adebayo, a big role for Kyle Lowry, and if Tyler Hero plays, he should be involved as well. Bam Adebayo has been like the guy you can trust the most on this Miami team. He's just been super productive lately, been playing big minutes. And Boston's defense, like against bigs, they haven't been as strong this season. And I know Boston's they've given up a lot of rebounds to centers. So, I think this is a spot where Bam could sneakily, do well. I don't think it's like a terrible matchup for him. So, I'm fine with Bam on this slate. I think he'll be pretty low owned because we just have so many other options. So, I definitely am interested in Bam for tournaments. I think Lowry at his price tag, I'd feel a little bit better about Lowry if Hero gets ruled out. If Hero plays, then I'm not like super into Lowry. And then Hero at his price tag, I'm not that interested in either. Bam is probably my favorite play on Miami, and I don't love a ton else here. This is a game I don't really want to get too much exposure to, just because I think it will kind of be somewhat lower scoring. You got two fairly good defensive teams going up against each other. But we'll have to wait and see with some of the question marks here, with Hero questionable, Martin questionable, and obviously the big one, most important one is definitely Jaylen Brown. We'll have to wait and see if he plays. Let's move on to the next game, though. We got Milwaukee and the Knicks. So looking at Milwaukee here, I think Milwaukee's kind of straightforward for me. It's really just Giannis, and that's probably it. Giannis, even against the Knicks, I mean, the Knicks, they're not like the worst defensive team, but they're not the best defensive team either, and I think this is definitely a spot where Giannis can have plenty of success. He's pretty much a matchup-proof player, and he can dominate in any matchup. You want the game to stay close. When games stay close and Giannis plays his normal minutes, he has, 70, 80-point upside, and he has like a 50-point floor. I mean, a bad game from Giannis is like 50 DraftKings points. They've already played the Knicks once this season. Giannis had 66 DraftKings points in 38 minutes. Yeah, he's a strong pay-up option. We'll have to wait and see what kind of value we get today. If a lot of value opens up and it's very easy to spend up for a guy like Giannis, obviously I'm totally fine doing that. Giannis is someone that I always have interest in. The rest of the Bucks, though, I'm not that interested in. Drew Holiday's price tag is starting to come down, but the production hasn't been the best lately. I feel like, kind of similar to DeJounte Murray. I feel like at some point Drew's going to have like a 45, 50 DraftKings point game. When will that happen? I really don't know. On a 13-game slate, probably not going to go to Drew. And then on the other side with the Knicks, so I don't love the spot for the Knicks. I mean, the Bucks are a really good defensive team. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league. It's not the best matchup for Randall or Brunson or Barrett. It's also a back-to-back for the Knicks as well. They did blow out the Pistons on Tuesday night, so like their starters should be fine and should be well rested for this game. But I'm not, I don't love targeting this Bucks team just because of how good defensively they are. I do want to mention the one guy from the Knicks that I could have a little bit of interest in today is Mitchell Robinson. But it's obviously a super scary spot going up against Giannis because Mitchell Robinson is someone that really struggles with fouls. He fouls a lot. He's always in foul trouble. And with Giannis driving to the basket, I mean, there's obviously a chance that Mitchell Robinson gets in foul trouble. But you look over his last few games, he's been able to stay out of foul trouble. His minutes have been good, and he's been pretty productive. 34 DK points in 32 minutes against Memphis, 30 DK points on Tuesday night against Detroit. Played 26 minutes in that game. Obviously would have played more had the game been close. I think if this game is close and Mitchell Robinson is not in foul trouble, he's going to play like 32, 33 minutes. He should average a fantasy point per minute, if not over that. I do worry about foul trouble in this spot, but if he can stay out of foul trouble, there's a lot of upside here for Mitchell Robinson, and the price tag is very low. He's only $4,500. If I was going to take a shot on anyone from the Knicks today, I think Mitchell Robinson is probably my favorite option. But that's it for that game. Let's move on to the next one, the Wizards and the Nets. So looking at the Nets today, big news here is that Ben Simmons will be out for Brooklyn. Don't know if that impacts a ton in terms of like Kevin Durant's role, Kyrie Irving's role. We know those guys are going to be heavily involved, even without, with Simmons. Without Simmons, doesn't really matter. Honestly, the biggest beneficiary with Ben Simmons out might be Nicholas Claxton. We've seen Nicholas Claxton and Ben Simmons kind of split center minutes at times this season. There's also been games where they've closed with Ben Simmons at center. I think Claxton's minutes definitely become more secure without Simmons, and we did see Claxton play 36 minutes last game after Simmons got injured. So my favorite play from Brooklyn today is probably Claxton, just because I think he is going to be locked into good minutes here, and as long as he's not in foul trouble and the game stays close, he should play over 30 minutes. So I definitely like Claxton at $5,800. Durant and Irving at their price tags on a 13-game slate, like I'm not super interested in either one of them. They're guys that I really never play when they're both healthy and they're both priced where they are. And then on the other side with Washington's another team, like when they're fully healthy, it's always tough to really feel super confident in Beal, Porzingis, Kuzma. Obviously, these guys are talented. They have plenty of upside, but it's hard to predict which one's going to have the big game. And where they're priced at on DraftKings at least, $8,700 for Beal, $8,500 for Porzingis, $8,300 for Kuzma. None of them really stand out at their price tags. So don't love a ton on the Washington side. I think the one play I like in this game in general is Claxton. I think Claxton really benefits without Ben Simmons, and I think at $5,800, he's definitely too cheap today. I do like him as kind of a center value play. Probably it, though. Maybe you could take a shot on a guy like Seth Curry. I think his minutes might be a little bit more secure without Ben Simmons. Production's kind of been all over the place for Curry this year, but he's only $4,200. Like, that's not the worst value play. But yeah, that's it for this game. Let's move on to the next one, San Antonio and OKC. So this is one that's kind of important to talk about because we do have some injuries in this game, some important injuries. On the San Antonio side, we got no Jakob Poeltl, we got no Jeremy Sohan. So with two starters out for San Antonio, we're going to have to wait and see what they do with their starting lineup. My guess is that Keita Bates-Diop, if he plays, right now he's listed as questionable. I'm guessing that if he plays, he will start at power forward in place of Sohan. And at $3,800, I think KBD is going to be someone we can consider for value if he does wind up starting. And then at center, I don't know what they're going to do at center because last time Jakob Poeltl was out, I believe they started Gorgui Dieng at center. Worth noting that in that game, Zach Collins was not available. Now that Zach Collins is available, there's a chance Zach Collins might start at center. Gorgui Dieng's barely been in the rotation this season. Like, I don't even know if he played last game. I don't even think he played last game. They've basically been just using like Zach Collins as the backup center. Even Charles Bassey really hasn't been getting many minutes. I don't think Bassey played last game either. I want to confirm that. He played like 2 minutes last game. So right now, the backup center behind Poeltl is Zach Collins. And Zach Collins, he's $4,500. He's a really good point per minute player, and it's a great matchup against OKC. So if Zach Collins starts in place of Poeltl, I think Zach Collins is a really good value play. He's a guy that, if he gets 24, 25 minutes, he can easily outperform the salary. You would think without Pirtle, he might have a chance to play like 26, 28 minutes. So I think at 4,500, Zach Collins is really interesting for value if he does wind up starting. If KBD starts, I think he's in play as well. The rest of San Antonio, like Vassell, Johnson, Trey Jones, not in love with any of these guys. I think Keldon Johnson at 7,100 is probably my favorite of the other three San Antonio guys. I just think this price tag is a little bit too low for Keldon Johnson. I know he's kind of been in like a slump lately, but he broke out of that slump last game against the Lakers, played 37 minutes, took 28 shots, had 52 Draftkings points. We know he's going to take a lot of shots on a nightly basis. We know he's going to have a big usage rate. The minutes are going to be strong as well as long as the game's close. He might get the Lou Dort matchup. I don't love that. If Lou Dort's going to guard Keldon Johnson, I don't love that matchup obviously, but I think Keldon's going to play big minutes, going to have good usage. The price tag does still feel a little bit too low. I can get behind him as like a small forward play today. And then on the other side with OKC, so SGA is currently questionable for OKC. This is really, really big news. If SGA plays, I think it's a great spot for him against San Antonio. San Antonio is one of the worst defensive teams in the league. They play at a really fast pace. Really like SGA here if he plays. If he's out, then I think we can look to Josh Giddey. We can look to Trey Mann. I think those would be the two biggest beneficiaries if SGA does not play. Giddey is only 6,700. We've seen him have really big games in the past whenever SGA has missed. I know Giddey's been really up and down this season, but he would look like a really, really good play if SGA is out. And then I assume Trey Mann would start in place of SGA, and at 3,300, Trey Mann would be a very strong value play. He'd be someone that obviously would look very appealing in what is one of the best matchups you can get. So a lot of news in this game. Definitely some important news as well. We'll have to wait and see with SGA, and then we'll have to wait and see what the Spurs do with their starting lineup, given they have two starters out. But I think that's probably it for this game. I think we kind of talked about like all the plays I'm interested in here. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. We still got like 7 more games to go through, so I want to try and get through these quickly, guys. Toronto and New Orleans. Not a game that looks that appealing. On the Toronto side, they're pretty much fully healthy now, so I don't love much on Toronto today. Siakam, OG, Barnes, VanVleet, all these guys feel priced correctly, and when they're all healthy, none of them look like priority plays, especially not on a 13-game slate. On the other side with the Pelicans, we'll have to wait and see if CJ McCollum plays. So CJ McCollum did clear COVID protocols, but he's listed as questionable. We do know that Brandon Ingram is going to be out once again. We saw a really big game from Zion last game without Ingram and without McCollum. 35 minutes, 51 Draftkings points. Obviously a tougher matchup here against Toronto, but if there's no McCollum as well, I think we can expect a really big role for Zion. Jonas Valanciunas, I played him last slate. I'm sure a lot of you guys played him last slate. It was a great spot against OKC, and he just played 20 minutes. Had just 19 Draftkings points. You would think without Ingram and potentially without McCollum, there'd be plenty of opportunity available for J-Val, but like his minutes have just been so tough to predict this season, and after he played just 20 minutes last game, don't know if I can go to J-Val. I'm sure he's going to go off tonight and just troll because that's usually how DFS works, but it's hard to consider J-Val a great play after he barely got any minutes last game, even with 2 starters out. It seems like they don't really have they don't want to play J-Val, it seems like. And then the rest of the Pelicans, guys like Trey Murphy, Jose Alvarado, their price tags have come up, so I'm not like super interested in them. Obviously, Murphy should start again in place of Ingram. He's okay at 5,100, but not a priority. And then Alvarado, he would start again if CJ McCollum's out. He's 4,900 though. His price tag also came up. Don't love these Pelicans guys today just because with their prices up, they don't really look like great options, at least not on a big slate like this. But I could definitely get behind Zion at 8,600, especially if McCollum is out, with Ingram out too. Let's move on to the next game though, the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. This should be a very fast-paced, high-scoring game. This should be definitely a fun one to watch. On the Memphis side, we'll start off with Memphis. I think for Memphis today, it's pretty simple for me. I think Ja Morant's the one guy that looks really appealing here. Definitely one of the better pay-up options on this slate, in my opinion. Minnesota, especially without Jaden McDaniels, their defense has definitely struggled, and McDaniels is a really good defender, and I'd assume he would guard Ja in this spot. He's questionable for this game, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But if McDaniels gets ruled out, that's actually kind of a sneaky boost for Ja Morant. And I think Ja's going to have a big role regardless, and he's basically matchup-proof anyways. Do need to keep an eye on the status of Dillon Brooks. So Dillon Brooks is questionable. Obviously, Memphis is still missing Desmond Bane. If they were to miss Dillon Brooks here as well, we could expect an even bigger role for Ja Morant, and we could expect bigger opportunity, more opportunity for guys like Jaren Jackson Jr., more opportunity for guys like John Conchar. I think those are guys we could maybe consider as well. If Dillon Brooks gets ruled out, I don't know who would start in place of Brooks. probably would be Aldama, I would guess, but I guess there's a lot of guys they could start. Like they could maybe start David Roddy, but I think Aldama would probably start in place of Brooks. I think Aldama at 4,500 would be like an okay value play. But outside of John Morant, I don't love a ton on this Memphis team. I think Brooks, if he does get ruled out, Jaren Jackson Jr. probably would be my second favorite play on Memphis. His minutes have kind of got back to normal. He played 30 minutes last game. Again, this should be a really fast-paced, high-scoring game, so there's plenty of upside here for Triple J. On the Minnesota side, so no Karl-Anthony Towns for Minnesota. Tough to see him go down, to injury. He's having such a solid season, and without Karl-Anthony Towns, I think there's going to be a lot of guys that benefit here. Anthony Edwards should benefit. D'Angelo Russell should benefit. Rudy Gobert should benefit as well. These price tags, didn't really move with Towns being ruled out. So I think all of Edwards, Gobert, and Russell look like pretty good plays today. I think they're all a little bit too cheap. Gobert, I think's minutes are going to be super high, and he's obviously going to play like all of his minutes as the starting center. He doesn't have to worry about, his production this season has been up and down, but I think without Towns on the floor, production should be really good for Rudy Gobert. He should go back to averaging, like 1.3, 1.4 fantasy points per minute like he did when he was in Utah. So 6,800 for Gobert is definitely way too cheap here with Towns out. I think Edwards at 8K looks really solid. Usually not a guy that I go out of my way to play, but I think with Towns out, that's obviously a huge boost for Anthony Edwards. And I know D'Angelo Russell has been really disappointing this season, but without Towns, there's just more usage available for him as well, and he's only 6,400. He's not super expensive. So the big three from Minnesota, if you want to call them the big three, Edwards, Gobert, Russell, I'm very interested in all three of those guys. Don't know if I would play them all in the same lineup, but I think one of the three, if not two of the three, I might be fine with. And then the rest of Minnesota, don't love a ton else here. We'll have to wait and see who starts in place of Karl-Anthony Towns. They could, they could go big and start Naz Reid, or they could start like Kyle Anderson. I think the most likely scenario is that Kyle Anderson will start in place of Cat. So at 3,800, I think Kyle Anderson's a pretty solid value today. He played 28 minutes last game. I think he was a guy that saw most of the minutes after Towns got injured. I think at 3,800, he's a strong value. We've seen Kyle Anderson be relatively productive when he does get minutes. Revenge game for him as well. I think he's my favorite value from Minnesota. But do want to mention Jalen Noel last game saw a lot of run off the bench, 25 minutes, 34 DK points. I think his minutes would be more secure if Jaden McDaniels got ruled out. So if Jaden McDaniels does sit for Minnesota, I would feel a little bit better about Noel. But I think he's going to get some opportunity too, and he's been productive when he's gotten minutes this season. So as someone to consider off the bench, I know he was really, really popular last slate. If he's going to be really popular again, I think I'd be fine fading him. But if nobody's going to play Noel on a big slate like this, then I'd be fine going there in GPPs. I'll be interested to see what his ownership is. But I think the best value from Minnesota is probably going to be Kyle Anderson, assuming that he starts in place of Towns. But yeah, that's it for that game. Let's move on to the next one, Houston and Denver. Just saw these teams play a couple days ago. Starting off on the Denver side, I think for Denver today, it's really Jokic and Murray that I'm interested in, and that's probably it. I think it's a great spot for Jokic. We saw him crush against Houston, even in limited minutes. Didn't play the fourth quarter because of blowout. Still had 59 Draftkings points in 27 minutes. Definitely could consider Jokic one of the better pay-up options on the slate. I have no issue with Jokic today. Clearly, nothing negative you can really say about him. And then Jamal Murray, it's a great matchup for him. Houston has really struggled against guards this season. I think it's a great spot for Murray. He put up 46 DK points last game against Houston in just 25 minutes. Price tag came up to 7,200. I think that will keep his ownership fairly low. He was pretty low on last slate. I think he'll be pretty low on again. So I'm definitely interested in Murray for GPPs. And that's probably it for Denver. And then on the other side with Houston, Houston's probably a full fade for me today. KPJ, Jalen Green, Şengün, none of these guys look that appealing on a big slate like this. I guess there is blowout risk with this game too. If you are playing Jokic, it might make sense to run it back with someone on the Houston side, hope the game stays close. But I could see Jokic putting up like 65, even in a blowout. So it's just Denver that looks appealing here. Jokic and Murray, the two guys I like most from Denver. Next game, though, the Clippers and the Jazz. So talking about the Clippers today, they're on a back-to-back. We're going to have to wait and see what their injury report looks like for today. No Paul George, no Kawhi Leonard. They didn't play. It seems like they're going to be out for a while. They didn't play on Tuesday. They're still going to be out. John Wall did not play Tuesday, but I'd assume he will be back for today. He usually sits on back-to-backs, and obviously it was the front end of the back-to-back. So John Wall should be back today. Malou Kennard should still be out. So I don't really like a ton from the Clippers. Obviously, the Clippers were a team that we targeted a lot on Tuesday's slate, but that was just a 3-game slate. We didn't have as many options. Today we had 13 games, so there's a ton more options. I will say that without Paul George, without Kawhi Leonard, you can expect pretty big roles for Reggie Jackson, for for Norman Powell, and these guys are still fairly cheap. I mean, Jackson's 5,400, Powell's 5,300, Terrence Mann's 4,700. Like, I'm still interested in these Clippers guys, but I'm not slamming them into my lineups like I was on Tuesday night, just because I have a feeling there's probably going to be better value available. But I think Jackson, Powell, Mann are all solid. With John Wall coming back, that does make Jackson look a little bit less appealing. But I still think Mann's going to play good minutes as a starter. I think Norman Powell's still going to have a good role off the bench. He's fine. And that's probably it from the Clippers. I do want to mention that it is a great spot for Ivica Zubac. We've seen the Jazz just get killed by centers this season. They've given up a lot of big games to opposing centers. I know, Zubac, last time they faced Utah, he had 14 and 14, 38 Draftkings points. The time before that when they played, he had 33 DK points, had 12 and 9, 35 minutes. I think it's a good matchup for Zubac. So, I don't hate Zubac as a center option today. But that's it for for the Clippers, on the Utah side. I don't know if I'm going to be targeting much on Utah here. They're still without Mike Conley, but kind of all the price tags have been adjusted for that. 7,200 for Jordan Clarkson, that's fine, but I don't love it. Lauri Markkanen, 7,900, fine, but I don't love it. Malik Beasley's been playing well off the bench, but his price tag's up to 5,500 now. Colin Sexton's been playing a little bit better. He's been starting in place of Conley. At 5,400, I still think, Sexton looks solid. He's probably going to get you 25, 30 DraftKings points, which at his salary, is okay. So I don't hate Sexton, but I don't know if there's going to be any core plays coming from Utah today. And on the Clippers side, I don't know if there's any core plays coming from the Clippers, but guys like Zubac, Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell, Mann, I could see mixing those guys in tournaments. Let's move on to the next game, though. We got 3 more to cover. Want to get through these quickly, guys. So Chicago and Phoenix. On the Phoenix side, I think if we're looking to any Suns today, it's probably going to be Devin Booker. That's probably it. Ayton, Bridges, Cameron Payne, these guys feel all priced about right. Booker at 10K is not my favorite pay-up option. I think I'd rather get up to John Morant, SGA, Jokic, Giannis. I think I'd rather pay up for those guys, but Booker has obviously shown a really big ceiling, had almost 70 DraftKings points last game. Clearly without Chris Paul, there's a lot of usage available for Booker, and he really benefits with Paul off the floor. He's not a terrible option at 10K. I just don't think I'm going to get there on a 13-game slate. And I think Chicago is probably just a full fade for me. It's a tough matchup against Phoenix. All these guys feel priced correctly. They're going to play big minutes. One of them could have a good game here, but it's always tough to predict which one of the main Bulls guys is going to have the big game. And when it's a bad matchup, I usually don't really ever target DeRozan, Vooch, or Levine where they're priced at. So probably just going to full fade the Bulls today, and I think I'll be okay with that. I guess, I think Ayo and Caruso are both okay. So Ayo's probable, and I think Caruso's probable. So, yeah. Maybe I would say if those guys were to sit, we can maybe get something from Chicago, but it looks like they're going to play. Let's go ahead and move on to the last 2 games of the night, Indiana and Sacramento. So this is a game that should be pretty fun for DFS purposes, should be fast-paced, should be high-scoring, little defense played in this game. On the Indiana side, I think Miles Turner, Tyrese Halliburton, the 2 guys I'm kind of interested in on Indiana. Halliburton has just been amazing this season. He's been matchup-proof, basically. Revenge game for him as well against his former team. Good matchup, too. I think at 9,500, I'm totally fine going to Halliburton and GPPs today. I think Miles Turner at 7,600, another guy that has shown a lot of upside this season. This price tag should keep his ownership very low, so I think in tournaments he makes plenty of sense. He'll be low owned. Don't think I'm getting to anyone else on Indiana. And then on the Sacramento side, probably just Sabonis and Fox, and I think that's it. Sabonis, revenge game for him as well. Indiana this season I know has kind of struggled against centers. They've kind of been giving up some fantasy points to centers this year. Sabonis is one of these guys that we know can stuff the stat sheet. I'm okay with him at 9,200, not a core play though. Same goes for your De'Aaron Fox at 9K. I think, against a fast-paced Pacers team, this is a spot that, Fox should definitely thrive in. He's had some tough matchups lately against Phoenix and Boston, but this is definitely a spot where he should bounce back in a big way. So I think at 9K, Fox is in play for GPPs. Don't know if there's going to be any, core plays, optimal plays though coming from this game. This game does look like one that makes sense to target in GPPs though, because it could be very high scoring. And I think the total in this game is probably going to be really high. But let's talk about the last game of the night, Portland and the Lakers. So for the Lakers today, pretty easy to cover this team. I think Anthony Davis, LeBron James, if you're going to consider anyone on the Lakers, it's going to be one of those 2 guys. When they're both healthy, neither one of them looks super appealing, but just because they are priced kind of to where they should be. LeBron is 10.6, AD's 10.7. Not in love with either one on this slate. I think there's other guys I'd rather spend my salary for, but if you want to go to one of AD or LeBron, can't hate you for it. The rest of the Lakers, I'm probably just going to full fade. And then the other side with Portland, they're on a back-to-back. We'll have to pay attention to their injury report. It is a very strong matchup here against the Lakers. The Lakers this season have been playing at the fastest pace in the league, so I think it's a good spot for a guy like Anthony Simons. I think Jeremy Grant's in a sneaky good spot. I definitely think Yusuf Nurkic at 6,900 looks appealing. Nurkic has been really productive lately. His minutes have been strong as well. He's having another really good game Tuesday night against the Clippers. At the time I'm making this video, that game's going on. I think Nurkic at 6,900, probably my favorite play from Portland today. I think he looks like a strong center play. I assume his ownership will be somewhat low on a 13-game slate. I'll be interested to see his ownership projection, but if he's going to be a guy that's low owned, I think in tournaments he makes a lot of sense. I think there's a lot of upside here for Nurkic. I do have interest in him today. Don't know if I'm getting to anyone else on Portland, though. I think Winslow as a value play is still okay. He was a guy that we were targeting on Tuesday for value just because it was such a small slate and we kind of needed the value. Have a feeling there's going to be more value available on a big slate like this. But Winslow at 4,600 still okay as a starter. Going to get good minutes. Price tag still fairly low. Don't hate going there. But that's it for that game, and that's it for the 13-game Wednesday slate. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I appreciate you watching. Hit that like button if you enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button if you guys have not yet. And check out PrizePicks, the sponsor of this video. Again, if you guys have not signed up for PrizePicks yet, get signed up over there. Use promo code NOAH. You will get your first deposit matched up to $100 when you do sign up with my promo code. I should have a PrizePicks video posted for today sometime on Wednesday afternoon. If you guys want to check that video out, I will be sharing some plays I like for PrizePicks today. If you guys want to tell me, you can check that video out when it does get uploaded sometime on Wednesday. But best of luck tonight, guys. Thanks for watching the video, supporting the content. Appreciate you guys a ton. We will see you in the next one. Peace.